All right, we are very much close to the NFL draft. I think there's only like a week left, maybe 6 days by the time you'll see this, maybe five actually, because of my editing. But before the actual NFL draft starts, I know it's coming quick. Had a lot of stuff happen. Haven't had a lot of videos out, but today I put a lot of time, and we are going to go over some of my personal favorite studs. I think guys that are kind of not necessarily underrated, but just guys that I feel really good about in this class, maybe a little bit underrated, and then some guys that I think are a little bit overrated. I think we should kind of slow down on where they are being ranked, and obviously I will kind of talk about how maybe good I think each of these players are. Some of them are good, maybe just a little too high. Some of them I just don't really like at all, and it obviously depends on the player, but that's what the video is going to be. So go ahead, stay tuned if you want to know more about some of these prospects that are coming in. Obviously, it's easy to know the quarterbacks or the main first-round guys that are coming in, or at least the top of the first round. But I think it's super important to know get day two guys or maybe guys early day three. Some of those guys are going to make gigantic impacts on your team, or if your team takes them, or just in the NFL in general, and you might not know about it before. So I think it's pretty good to know maybe a good amount at least about some of these players coming in that aren't necessarily at the top of the draft. But let's go ahead and dive in to the first player. All right, the first player I have, the stud here, is running back Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State. I have him as my third-ranked running back, and I have him as a for sure second-round talent. I know it's kind of cliche for him kind of being necessarily, I mean, he is basically the people's champ with his awesome playoff game and just everything he did. But I think he's just a damn good football player. I really do. And I think it really kind of clearly shows like it did on the big stage there. But he also does a great job showing it. And I think he's just going to get to work and just totally end up working out on whatever team he goes to and whatever position he plays. He's just a really pure football player, a guy that I want on my team. He had the second best season this year, just in terms of overall just running backs. He had the second best season behind Ashton Genty. He's a great receiver, gonna absolutely run through you. Will get like the last yard by any means necessary. Not ideal size or speed, but it's not too bad for what he's gonna be. He's around 5'9", 219 pounds. He's said to have run around like a 4.65, which is a bit lower for sure. And he did not fully test at the combine, but what he did do was his vertical jump, and it was absolutely elite. One of the best vertical jumps from a running back in general. Some ball security concerns a little bit, not a ton, but it is objectively there. And I kind of view him as like a Mark Ingram in his prime, or like a better receiving kind of Kyren Williams. And I think Kyren Williams, obviously we didn't expect what he would be coming out, and I think he's obviously been so much better. But I do think maybe his touchdown production is more so just the offense he's in and that he gets all the touches there, and obviously the productive offenses that's there. But he is still a good running back, and I think that adding a better receiver is a really good running back, and I think that's what Cam Skattebo can absolutely be. I don't think his ceiling is absurdly high like some of these other guys, but I don't think his floor is low to where he's not worth a second-round pick. Like, I think his floor is pretty high, but his ceiling's not bad. I really don't think it is. So just feels like a really good football player to me and someone that I really like in this draft. The other running back I have here is Travion Henderson. I have him as my fourth-ranked running back, and I view him as a round 2 pick to maybe a very early round 3 pick. He is my preference out of the two Ohio State running backs that are coming out. Not really a full, like, give me the load kind of guy, but so probably preferably is probably going to be used like a Jahmyr Gibbs type in terms of just more so like he's going to be a heavy split back who can be a full-time like high majority carry guy. But when, the other one is injured, like he can come in. It's just maybe that's not going to happen like all the time. Very good blend of size and speed. Good receiver, is much stronger than you think. Explosive. He does have some vision concerns I had kind of seen, but he takes care of the ball, which is very good for a player that's kind of his type of big explosiveness. Sometimes ball security is an issue. That's not really the case for him. He does actually have good strength, like better than you would think. Like I said, he's fourth in available running backs in this class in yards after contact, which that kind of seems to be the biggest downside for him in terms of what I'm reading of like, hey, yeah, strength, he's just not there. Well, I mean, it seemed to show on the field more so than maybe in the weight room. So I feel like that's maybe a little bit misleading. And I kind of view him as like Dalvin Cook, like if he was played as if a modern day running back, like still a much more capable receiver than Dalvin Cook was. Not the same like strength that Dalvin Cook was, but like that kind of style of running back, or like just a more athletic and just much better like step up, maybe what we thought he was going to be, DeAndre Swift. That's kind of what I view him as. And then for the running backs that I have, maybe to slow down a little bit on, I have Quinshon Judkins, the other Ohio State running back at number 7. He's my running back 7. I have him as like a late third rounder. Might be a bit shocking, but I think he is a little bit overrated, in my opinion. He honestly had a really disappointing year. I'm not as high on him compared to like what I maybe would have been last year when he was at Ole Miss because he was a transfer. He didn't show a lot of twitch really at all. He was doing just enough of production, but that's just because he's a good athlete. But he didn't really have many broken tackles. Yards after contact was much lower. Elusive rating was terrible, all much lower than expected. Maybe it was because Henderson was there and took away stuff. Maybe it's because they only used him in one spot. I don't really know, but he really wasn't great. As much, at least as good as you would think. But he tested well and obviously saved everyone's opinion. But I still have him as like a very much a late day 2 pick, like a late third rounder. And I just think everyone's probably gonna look at that if that happens and be like, if he goes anywhere in day 2, they're just gonna feel great about it. Or if he goes like later than they think, he's gonna be a steal. But I don't think that. I just don't think that if he goes later, that's probably because that's what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be around there. And so, I'm just not as big of a fan. I think the athleticism saves him a ton, but even then, I just don't think he can just be like, all right, because you're this athlete, you're a good running back now. Like, he just did not really show a lot for me personally, and I'm just not as high. I'm not saying he'll be bad, could be good, but I'm just not. I don't see the ceiling that maybe other teams do or people do. I think he's like a Brian Robinson as kind of what he'll be, but he could also be like a Ronald Jones type, which was definitely a bust at running back that Tampa Bay drafted a few years ago. So that's kind of what I see with him. In terms of the next running back, I have Bashal Tutin here out of Virginia Tech. I have him like around, I mean, he's lower than my 12th running back, so he's not even in the top 12 for running backs. I think I view him as like a mid to late day 3 pick. Which now it might be weird talking about him because he's not seen as a higher guy, but he is rising for sure. And I'm just here to like try and bring it down a little bit. He's smaller, inconsistent. He did have a lot of missed tackles, which is good. But he's not a receiver, and he had way too many fumbles. He had 8 fumbles in 2 years, and not a high carry guy at all. I think he's really going to depend on where he goes and what role he plays. He just cannot get the ball a lot, but he could be, he had a great combine and tested super well athletically, and that's why he's seen higher. But I think it's a little bit of fool's gold, in my opinion. We'll see where he goes, but I just think with the carries, like you're going to be tempted to give him more carries, and boom, he's going to fumble his way out of the job. I think his ceiling is kind of like a rookie year Clyde Edwards-Helaire. When Clyde Edwards-Helaire first came out, I mean, it was shocking he went in the first round, but when he first came out in his rookie year, he was solid. Like, he wasn't bad. But his floor, like for Tutin, is just, a nothing, like gone, because he's fumbling way too much. That's kind of what I see with him. Honorable mention here, just to throw in, Ollie Gordon, the running back out of Oklahoma State. Just don't even think about drafting him. Like, really poor from 2023. He's 233 pounds, but he's not as powerful as you would think. Had a DUI in this past summer. He was definitely going to have to perform as an athlete at the combine to raise his stock. He didn't really do that. I just don't think your team like got some kind of steal or great player later on because you've heard his name before. There's a reason he's going lower because he was terrible. So I don't view him very highly. So that's my honorable mention for that, for running backs. Next for receivers is going to be Luther Burden. I have him as my wide receiver 2, technically number 3 if you count Travis Hunter. But I do have him as like a mid round 1 guy out of Missouri. I think him falling is just going to be a big plus to whoever gets him, like totally. Because I think he is absolutely a mid first round guy for sure, and he can still go there, but it seems more likely that he's projected to go later in round 1, or even sometimes I've seen him not go in the first round at all. He was weirdly quiet. Obviously, I think that's why he's falling from this year compared to last year, but it seems it's much more of like the quarterback issue than just him, because 2023 was amazing. It was very good. And there weren't like major outstanding injuries or anything. It was just more attention was paid to him, and the quarterback play was much worse than we thought. But he isn't really bad at anything. I think he can help you like in any position. Maybe not your like crazy go up and get it guy. That's probably something he wouldn't do. But I don't think that's really something you need out of him, anyways. He was a 5-star, played basketball, great athlete, high ceiling, I think, as a wide receiver. Again, not as aggressive as you would like. Kind of the passiveness of not the same thing, but a Devontae Smith, not Tyler Lockett passive, but maybe like Devontae Smith kind of passive. But I do view him as like DJ Moore. That's kind of what I think he is. Really good. If he's a wide receiver 1, he's a little bit lower, but still can absolutely be a wide receiver 1, or just a awesome complementary wide receiver 2, like a Devontae Smith. Not the same necessary style because Burns bigger, but just the role that they play, I think, could be similar if he's in that position. But I really like him. He's my wide receiver 2. Next is going to be wide receiver Jaden Higgins, also in the steals, or not the steals, but the studs right here. I've met wide receiver 4, technically wide receiver 5 again if you count Travis Hunter, but I have him as a late first rounder / early second round guy. I don't think he's getting talked about enough. Jaden Higgins at Iowa State, I really don't. He's improved every single year. Had a great final season at Iowa State this year. Really good stuff at the Senior Bowl. I mean, I think everyone left kind of very impressed with him. Ideal size, 6'4", 219, great production, 87 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, really good hands, has one of the lowest drop rates in the class, really good footwork and route running. Like for a 6'4" guy, his route running's awesome, way more fluid than you would think. Only concern is just how fast he is, and he's obviously not like your great like yards after catch kind of guy. So because of that, his ceiling is objectively probably a little lower, and guys like Burden are definitely higher. But I still think he's a really good wide receiver 2, and capable of being a wide receiver 1 with how reliable he is, but you're not like, 100% that he's a wide receiver 1. Not the same guy, but like kind of like Michael Pittman being a wide receiver 1, Like, yeah, he's a wide receiver 1, but if you were to ideally say, like, is he safe there? I would say, like he's definitely is. Like, he's a really good 2, but he's a like bottom 5 wide receiver 1, maybe a little higher, but that kind of role, but still an awesome player you want to have. I think he's like a little bit of a lesser Drake London. That's kind of what I see Higgins as, or like a step above like Tim Patrick, when Tim Patrick was really good with the Broncos. So I don't think he's Tim Patrick, but he's for sure a step above, but maybe he's a little bit lesser than Drake London. So somewhere in the middle, but I'd say closer to Drake London's kind of area, which is why he'll go lower, but I still think the talent is worth a very late first-round pick or very early second-round pick. And then for wide receivers, in terms of the guys I think we need to slow down a bit on, I have Matthew Golden here. Matthew Golden is my 6th receiver, and I have him as like a mid-second-round pick. I just think we're getting a little bit overboard here with Matthew Golden. He is a great athlete, absolutely showed it. Showed a lot of like tough catches for his size, for sure. But he was super inconsistent with his route running. Like, I really don't love that. And his hands are fine, but they are the most concerning out of every first round pick, for sure. And they could absolutely be better, which it really concerns me personally. I just don't love going head first into those kind of guys. And the reason he's on here is because he's viewed as potentially like the wide receiver 2, like maybe being drafted as the wide receiver 2, and I just really don't love that. I'm not saying he will be this, but I don't know. I feel like he's closer to like a Jalen Hyatt situation than he is like a Devontae Smith kind of situation. I just that's kind of how I feel. especially with the hands. But yeah, I have him as a wide receiver 6, mid-second round, but he's might be going as the second wide receiver off the board, which I would not love. And then next is wide receiver Eric Ailmaner from Stanford. So I probably pronounced that wrong. But I have him as like my wide receiver in like 10 to 12, maybe 9. I have him as like a late mid third round pick. And I'm not saying he's gonna suck, but I just don't see him as high as other guys do. Like PFF has him as the number 5 wide receiver. He's not a bad athlete. He's fine there. He does have ideal size and is physical and young, which is good. But he showed the least upside to me all around. Like of all these receivers that are kind of around him, like I guess he definitely can be like at least a solid receiver. But I view him as more of like a wide receiver 3 or like a Tim Patrick level wide receiver 4 than a wide receiver 2 with upside. And that's kind of what you would expect when taking him in the second round or early third round. And that's kind of where he's at. And I would push that lower a bit. I definitely prefer other guys there with upside. I'm not saying, his floor is poor, but I don't know. The floor doesn't really excite me either, to be honest. Like, I don't know. Hands are fine, but he's just like solid, like whatever. You can get that later. You can get that 4th round, honestly, day 3, maybe a little later. So I just think he's going a little too high. Only one tight end on the studs list I have, because the other two, like, obviously, Tyler Warren, like, all these other guys, like, we know they're studs, come on. But for this list right here, I have Elijah Arroyo, tight end number 3 here. He is a mid to late second round pick for me, or very early third round pick. He's slowly gone up my board since the beginning of since the start of this kind of process, and I think he's now for sure my tight end 3. He just had a breakout year with Cam Ward. Dynamic after the catch, really good hands, actually gets separation. Ideal size as well. He has an 81.5-inch wingspan, which is 84th percentile. Lower experience. He only really had 1 full year of play, which was this past season. So hasn't really played a lot. And he's not really a blocker at all. He's not like a traditional tight end, but he needs to be played as like a for sure receiving tight end who can line up in the slot as well. But he's a guy who after like a year or two, I think can be your for sure tight end in a heavy receiving role where he can make a massive impact. I really like him in that spot. No tight ends for ones that I think are overrated. I don't think that's kind of the case with this tight end class. But next is going to be offensive line. And I do have a few guys here. Tackle Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. A bit concerned. I am a bit concerned. Not bad, but I think he does have a better build than other tackles in this class, and is a good athlete for the position, but he's probably going to go higher than he needs to, which might be somewhere in round 1, and I would not love that. He had a really poor Senior Bowl, just really poor Senior Bowl. Again, he's a good athlete. He was a running back, funny enough, in high school. Which maybe that is kind of why he's lower in terms of performance. But he's absolutely going to have to go through the growing pains of a tackle for sure, at least in a starting tackle in the NFL. He seems like he's got good competitive fire in him, and he's kind of your general developmental starting tackle. But I just don't think it's a round 1 pick. Kind of like how Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma was, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, like how he went to Jacksonville as a first-round pick. I just didn't think that was a first-round pick. And so that might be what we have with Josh Connerly. And then the other one is Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota. And this one I'm very concerned. I just don't like him. I really don't. He fell off from the previous year. Again, has ideal size. Might be why he's going higher, because a lot of these tackles in this class don't have that ideal size. They're much smaller. But, I mean, his play style is so non-fundamental at all. Like, his balance is terrible. I think he needs to sit 1,000,000% when he gets in the NFL. Has character concerns as well. Again, he showed to be a good athlete in some areas, but he also didn't in others. So I think the only thing you're really drafting him for is just, obviously he's not a bad athlete, but just the idea of okay, there's a tackle that fits the potential mold of one that we would need. And I don't love him. I really don't. I think in terms of where he's gonna go. It seems like he is falling a little bit, but it probably gonna go somewhere on day 2, which I guess is fine. But I don't know. I just don't love it. Just don't love him as a prospect. So that's kind of my concern there. And then the last offensive lineman here, I have Tyler Booker, who's gonna be an interior guy out of Bama. And he's not bad per se. I just think he's overrated. I kind of agree with PFF. Was not outstanding in like any way when he was at Alabama, but he wasn't bad. He did not test well athletically though, and I mean, he has good size, but I don't. I mean, if he's a round 1 pick, I'm just gonna roll my eyes like totally. And I've seen some stuff that he might go round 1. And I'd say the odds maybe would be more so that he doesn't, but even early round 2, I'm still kind of like, like I just don't know if I love that. Like, yeah, he's not bad, but I don't know. The ceiling of where he's going, like, I think it's just a little too high, especially for how poor his combine was. It really was not ideal for what he is, and I just don't think he's that great anyways. So Tyler Booker, kind of on my thing of overrated for offensive linemen. And then for underrated guys or studs, I do have 2 here. Tackle Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. He is my second-ranked tackle, and I have him as like a mid-first-round pick. Now, this is a scenario where I think injury is definitely affecting his draft spot for sure. But I think in like a fine scenario where he isn't rushed at all, it'll be like real good for him to go later, isn't rushed, but still projected to be a first-round pick. Like, I think that's going to be a pretty ideal scenario for him, and he's probably better than the position he's going to be picked at. In an O-line class where there's a lot of question marks at the tackle position, especially like if they can actually just play tackle because of their size, I think Simmons, with him being here, is just really good as like a good left tackle prospect with all the requisite stuff and athleticism to stick there. I've had him to the Texans a ton, but I think if maybe they actually do this, I don't know if they will, but like if the 49ers, if there's a scenario where they go on ahead and pick him, like, and he doesn't have to rush back from his torn ACL, because that's why he's lower, because he had a torn ACL. That would be super ideal. And like after that, he should be fine to go. But I think he's a starting pass blocking tackle. Again, the reason he's lower is because he tore his ACL, only played 6 games this year for Ohio State, but was really good when he played. He moves very quickly off the ball, very athletic. Just needs to get a little bit stronger. I think he's like a slightly lesser Christian Darrisaw, who's a great starting tackle, pass blocking tackle for the Vikings. I don't think he's going to get to that level, but I think he's not insanely far off, and is a guy that you're happy about being your starting tackle. And I think getting that in the low 20s would be awesome. And he's my tackle too, and I have him as a mid-first round guy. And then the next one is Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. He's kind of just an offensive lineman. He can kind of play all of them, but I'm as number 2, kind of on the interior. I'm counting Will Campbell as like an inside guy because I don't know if he's going to really play tackle. But I think Gray Zabel kind of ranks like around the 20s, somewhere around there. And I think he's one of the safest players in the class, in my opinion. In an offensive line class with a lot of uncertainty too, I just think that value goes up for me even more. He can play all 5 offensive line positions, more so like an interior guy, though. Very athletic, great in zone blocking schemes. Literally had one of the best vertical jumps of an offensive lineman ever. He's definitely shorter, though, so his tackle upside, I think, is limited. But I think you can kind of view it as like what the Chiefs had with Joe Thuney this year. Like, if you need him to start at tackle because you have injuries, like, he can do that. It's just the upside is obviously limited. But I think like he's going to be better than at least the guys that you had on your roster if you have injuries. And I think that's kind of what he is. He's like a bit of a notch below Joe Thuney, but one that you're glad you got. And I really think the Cardinals is just a perfect fit. Like, I really like that with the need and scheme. Like, I would much prefer them picking him. They probably won't, but that's kind of my vision of what I think they should do and where he should just go, because I think he's a really safe, good player on the interior and has very good athleticism. Like, I think he's just got it all, and is just solid. Not crazy ceiling, but a good player. Next, I'm going to go Derek Harmon. He is a stud that I have here. He is my fourth-ranked defensive interior player, and I have him as like a late first-round pick. He's another guy who I just feel really good about where he is, and I feel really safe just about picking him as a versatile player. Amazing production last year at Oregon. Former guy from Michigan State transferred to Oregon. Great motor, has shown awesome pass rush and run defense production this past season. Although it was only one great year of production, so that's kind of the concern there. But very good measurables, really good speed. He can take over, or he can be like over the tackle or over the B gap, so he's versatile in that way. He's said to have had like awesome football IQ in his kind of meetings that he's had with teams. Not elite in anything, but I think he's just a really good defensive interior guy. And that's kind of what this class is. This class is just a lot of like, go find your good starters, and you're walking away happy out of this class. Like, I think this class just has a lot of those, and this is a guy where if you might need one, go ahead and snag him later first round. I'm totally cool with that. I think he's like a slightly lesser Leonard Williams. Like, he's a notch below Leonard Williams. That's kind of the view I have, where he can be like a 4-3 defensive end, or maybe can also even play defensive tackle. Like, he can kind of do both of those. Or, I mean, a 3-4 defensive end or a 4-3 defensive tackle, but he can also be a 4-3 DN. Like, he can kind of move all around, and that's pretty ideal. Leonard Williams is more stuck right now just because he's older, but that's kind of what I think Derek Harmon can be. And then my defensive interior down here for guys that I just don't love is Deion Walker from Kentucky. He has fallen, but it has been deservedly so. And he's been kind of creeping back up a bit, but I definitely want to make my opinion clear on him. He's got great interior size, but that's it. That's literally all I see. He's very much a hard developmental pick. He plays way too high, has no leverage at all when he does stuff. Very poor Senior Bowl. Not really shown to be a run stopper at all, even though he has amazing size. He hasn't really shown that. Poor combine. I just don't see him as a day 2 guy or even a round 4 player. Like, I think anything beyond that is kind of what I see him as, and he's ranked in some guys as like a round 3, maybe early round 4 guy. I don't love that. I don't. So Deion Walker from Kentucky, not really a big fan. And that's the defensive interior for my underrated, or my overrated. And then the edge rushers for kind of my underrated, I have 2 guys on here. Or not underrated, I keep saying that. I mean like studs. That's what I'm trying to say. Studs. Some of them can be a little overrated, yes, but just guys that aren't like your top tier. Like, we know Ashton Genty, we know, Tyler Warren, we know Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. We know those guys. We know. These are guys that are maybe in the middle of the first round that are like, okay, these are total real good impact guys that are not being talked about enough. And right here, I have Mike Green, who's my second-ranked edge in the class, and I have him as like a top 10 to 14 player in the class. A guy I saw very quickly in this process, and I just immediately added him to my favorite list. Dominated at the Senior Bowl, dominated at Marshall. Yes, it's versus lower competition, but that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to dominate. He doesn't really even like use his athleticism versus lower competition, because he's got a ton of really good moves, like his dip and rip, inside moves. Like, he didn't just win off of athleticism versus lower comp. Like, he showed a ton of good moves, which makes me feel a lot better about him. His size is smaller than normal, but he's had great athletic testing, 95th percentile in his 40 time and the 3 cone, and he doesn't really lack in one area. He really doesn't. I mean, he has had off-the-field issues. He had sexual assault allegations, which he has denied them, and nothing further has come out, but it's still definitely, a potential concern and something to watch. But the player itself, I do just really like, especially for an edge rusher needy team like the Falcons, to get him, or even I would be fine if the Panthers took him at 8. I would totally be fine with that. I think that'd be really good. I really like Mike Green in this class. And then the next guy is another kind of later first-round guy, edge rusher Donovan Izaraku out of Boston College. I have him as my fourth overall edge, and I have him as a late first-rounder. Very much like a specific type of edge rusher, but for a team that like really wants that type and kind of needs it, this is a perfect pick. His overall size is much shorter than normal, Power is not really his game at all, and he's much more of like a linebacker edge kind of hybrid guy than just like an okay, I'm at inside edge and on the line of scrimmage the whole time. Like he's not really that. So I wouldn't play him there, which is why he needs to be specific at his spot. But he had great athletic testing, specifically 3-cone and shuttle. Great senior season that he just had. Got a lot of moves, especially the arm bend. That seems to me his best move for sure. I think he's a first-round pick, and I think he's a first-round talent. And I think he projects to be at least just a good starting pass rusher that you're not really worried about replacing. And it's the same exact comp I've always had. It's Harold Landry. A lot of people had this too. Good starting pass rusher for sure. You're not worried about replacing him, and he plays very similar. And Harold Landry also went to Boston College, funny enough. So comp just kind of fits perfectly there. So that's where I have Donovan Izaraku. And then for the edge rusher that I two of them I have on here that I think maybe we should slow down a little bit on. Mykel Williams is the first one out of Georgia. Look, I get the allure. I'm just not as much of a buyer on him for getting him at his like peak or what people think his upside will be. He's one of the youngest players in the class. Does have very ideal size, really long arms. He was injured at the start of the year and played through it, so not really a lot of production at all, but kind of your classic like athletic Georgia edge. He was great at defending the run. He's super strong, but he hasn't really shown a lot of pass rushing upside really at all. He is versatile because of his build, but I would really be nervous for like whatever team drafts him in the first round. Like if you draft him in the first round. He's not a bad player, but I just don't think he's ever going to be a really good, if not even just good pass rusher in general. I don't know if he's ever going to do that. Like he's a good run defender, but that might just be what he is. And he's not really a like linebacker. He's more of like an edge. It's not the same type of player, but in terms of like where they're going, like, not where they're going, but I don't know, just it gives me like Trayvon Walker vibes, like boosting him up because of obviously maybe Walker's was the combine and Williams doesn't, but just the Georgia allure and expected like, production in terms of moving over with their athleticism. Like I just don't really know if he's going to be a consistent pass rusher in the NFL. I really don't. Which I don't think that's a round one, player. And like I just don't love it there. I don't. I mean, I know there are round one guys that have done that before, but I think he's a round two player. That's just me personally. No crazy combine performance, less pass rushing upside, which Walker had, Walker had like I said, a crazy combine and better pass rushing performance, and Williams doesn't have any of that. I just don't love it for where he's being ranked. Next is edge rusher Princely Unman-Mielen out of Ole Miss, and I just do have a lot of concerns here. He had some of the best numbers this past year, really got down in weight, and his size is a bit smaller. The combine, though, was just really weird for him. Like, he had an amazing vertical jump and broad jump, but really poor, like, 3-cone and shuttle. So he's, like, explosive, but not really agile, which is, like, kind of weird. He's kind of hard to pin as a prospect in general. On any given down, he could have, like, a great rep, but then there's more reps after that, which are just super poor. I think he has a high floor as a run defender, but I don't know if he's really a consistent pass rusher in the NFL, which I don't really know if is a round two guy. Like, he's like not far off with Mykel, but just worse in a lot of ways. And if Mykel's round one and Princely's round two, I think those should just both be lower. I think Mykel should be round two and Princely should be at least round three. That's kind of where I would have those guys. Next, we're going to go ahead and do cornerback, or not cornerback. I do have one linebacker. No one that I think is overrated at linebacker, but one guy I do think I want to mention as a stud, and that's Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. He is my RB1, or my linebacker one for sure, but I have him as like a borderline top 10 player in the class. I think he might not go as high only because of his position, but even then, I think he needs to be valued much more than what he might be. He can literally play any linebacker position at all. He's not locked into one spot. Ideal linebacker build, amazing senior season, very balanced, like Mike linebacker who can also do a bunch of stuff. Like he was a former edge rusher, so he still has like pass rushing traits for sure, and is developing as a linebacker prospect while still having a great season. Like he's still developing. There's still upside. Had awesome athletic testing. Doesn't lack measurables wise at all, so none of that lacks at all. He is a little bit lighter, so maybe getting a little bit stronger as a tackler can improve, but that's about it. But I think he can literally do anything. He can cover, pass rush, stop gaps. He had one of the lowest missed tackle rates, so very good. Super young, only 21 years old. He just needs to be talked about more. I don't know why he's not. Whatever team gets him, I personally think they're going to get an A. I would just give him an A in the class because they're going to get him, and he's going to be really good. And I do think he can play multiple positions and can move around. Like if the Bears in my last mock draft, if they get him, great for them. Or if the Colts, because they love guys, that's awesome for them because they need that kind of position anyways. So just really like Jahad Campbell. I think he should definitely be ranked higher or talked about a little more. And then coming out and to finish up this video in the secondary, guys I really like, Siobhan Revelle out of ECU. He is my third ranked cornerback, and I have him as like the 22nd to 28th, so kind of like a later first round pick kind of guy. He has been all over the place with so many people's rankings, but I think he's really going to be good, and I think he's going to go later than he probably should. Great measurements, like super ideal for everything an outside cornerback needs to be. He did tear his ACL this past season, and I think if not for that, he would definitely be a first-round pick. He did have academic issues, which is why he was at ECU to begin with, and he has not really fully tested, but has reported as like a great athlete, or not great, but like really good. He had 4.4 speed was kind of his projected and kind of reported speed from games and practices and I think a pro day. He is older though. He's 23, and he was great in 2023, like awesome. But he only played 3 games this past season. Didn't show a lot of technique, so I think he needs to learn that a bit. And he's a bit of like a slight kind of boomer bust guy, like a lower school mystery, but one that I personally would bet on just because of his awesome size and just ideal scenario with, what he could potentially go into. And I think he could potentially be like a really good starting outside corner for you that you might get in the second round, which is super ideal, especially in this class. And then the next guy I have here is Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. He is my cornerback 4. I have him as like the 31st or 35th best player, so right at the end of the first, right at the beginning of the second. Also a guy is probably going to go lower because of his injury. It's just his injury was definitely very impactful for him. But 2023 was so good for like a higher competition school compared to Revelle and with Morrison, what he had to deal with at Notre Dame, that he just pushed him up a ton. He was injured with a season-ending hip injury this past season, and he would have been higher. He does have shorter arms, but he's very balanced. He has not tested at all, but it seems like he has good speed. Not poor production, but nothing crazy. But it seems like guys kind of avoided throwing to him when he was really playing last year. His stock is really going to flow based on the injury news, which I think it seems to kind of be better than we think, though. Very good professional, only 21 years old. I think where he's going to go, I think is going to be really good value for whatever team he's going to go to because of the injury stuff. But I really like him. Benjamin Morrison, I think, is a really good player. And then for safety, I have Xavier Watts, also out of Notre Dame. So I really like Notre Dame's secondary here. He is my third-ranked safety. I have him as like an early to mid-second-round pick. Okay athlete, smaller size, but great instincts and IQ, like amazing. Former wide receiver. He had 13 picks in 2 years with Notre Dame. This past season was awesome. He's the best ball-hawking true safety in the class, but he does struggle with tackling, so very much like a back free safety kind of guy. And he is older, but he's a plug-and-play guy for a kind of safety-needy team, and I think there's definitely guys out there that can do that. And in the second round, you're just so happy with that because, again, we want to come away with good starters in this class because that's what this class has, a ton of good starters. And Xavier Watts is one of them, and I think it would just be great to go ahead and pick him up for whatever team might need him. And then in terms of kind of our final stretch here in terms of guys I just think we need to slow down on. I'll start at safety and then go to corner. I have Malachi Starks here, which I know is a little weird. And again, I don't want to say he's bad because he's not. I just don't know about his ceiling. I think he does have limited upside at a lower position of value, especially if he goes like mid first round, like he's expected. And if he doesn't, then we can take him off this list and he goes where he should. But I don't know. He played slot, safety, and in the box, so that helps a ton. He has moved all around. Has good speed, but is nothing crazy as an athlete. He was better in coverage in 2023 than 2024. Is smart, versatile. He's got a high floor, for sure. I just don't know about the ceiling. And if he goes in the first round compared to other guys that we've had go in the first round, like I just don't really like the value of this guy as much, like in that spot. But he's the one I'd easily take off this list compared to anyone else because of, kind of the idea of like, okay, yeah, I know he's going to be good. I just don't know how good, to be honest. Next is going to be Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky. Just really reliant on just his athleticism. Like, that's mainly, which I understand because he tested amazingly. But if he's starting right now, I think it's going to be a big net negative for whatever team picks him to start. And his rankings suggest that he's going to be picked to start right away. But, I mean, he's a crazy athlete, like amazing athlete. But the production and just the tape are just like, like very much was injured in 2024, much better in 2023. Ran a 4.28, crazy, but he's not very strong, so I don't really know about his ability in man coverage, but he does have that speed. I would just be cautious about playing him immediately and playing him in a certain role, and with him maybe being like a high second-round pick potentially, I would just be a little worried. I have two more. I know I said one. I have two more. I wanted to save one of them kind of for the end. But one I'm going to bring up now that I forgot to bring up in the beginning is Jackson Dart. Again, I almost had Shedeur Sanders on here. We know my stance on Shedeur Sanders, but it seems like he's falling a little bit anyways. If he goes 3 to the Giants, holy overdraft. I mean, insane. Even 9 to the Saints. I understand it, just don't love the value. Him going 21 or lower, that feels much better. But a guy who might go ahead of him in some stuff, Jackson Dart, who I have as my quarterback 3, but I have as like a second or third round guy. Now, this is mainly because of where it seems like he may go, but I think it's pretty simple. Like, he's a round 2 at the most kind of player, like for sure. But it seems like he's 100% going to be round 1 for sure, and maybe even in the top 10 to 20. Now, I don't want to say for sure because we had Will Levis who looked like that and ended up falling out. So maybe I should rephrase that. Not for sure, but it seems like he might be a first-round pick. Now, he does have some real talent, like in areas. I do for sure admit that. But he just should not start for the first year. Absolutely should not. Varied a ton in his consistency. Hasn't really been under center at all. Can take hits, which is good. He takes hits from the pocket. Sneaky good athlete, actually. Reading defenses, though, is not something he's really done at all, and I think a lot of his success was scheme-dependent with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, and he rarely ever, actually looked to make defensive reads and go through his progressions. I just don't really know if you can take that kind of guy in round 1, let alone to be a starter right now. Like, if the Saints take him in round 1, he's probably going to be their starter because of Derek Carr's injuries. Like, I would just be so concerned about that. I don't know if the Steelers really like him and then take him when they have Rodgers, sure, but I don't know if that's going to really be the case. I think they like Shedeur much more. But he's just not a starter right now. He's still my quarterback 3. Kenny Pickett is like the PFF comp, and I honestly think I agree. I do. And I think Kenny Pickett's honestly a little bit underrated just because of some of the crazy stuff that he kind of shows with, his plays can be just really bad. But I think objectively, as a player, I don't think he's as bad as people think. Meaning Kenny Pickett, but that's not really a starting for sure quarterback. And, Jackson Dart, I guess, yeah, he could be, obviously. But the position it seems like he might have to be thrusted into for wherever he goes, I really don't love it. I really don't. And then the final guy on this list, my biggest probably difference in this draft is Will Johnson. Will Johnson. Definitely my biggest difference in terms of my opinion and the consensus. He was great in 2022, starting as a freshman, just like Derek Stingley was when he obviously was coming out of LSU. Injured last year, which I think definitely showed in his lesser play. He wasn't bad, but he was not great. Definitely has speed questions, which is big for an outside cornerback. So with him being a question as an athlete without amazing production and coming off an injury, like all that definitely concerns me for a guy that we're saying is going to be or should be like the cornerback 1 or 2, or not cornerback 1 because Travis Hunter, but like the cornerback 2 and like a top 15-ish pick. Like I don't know. I mean, he's got great size and length, but he's very poor in run defense. Again, speed is really like not ideal. He but kind of tested, but kind of didn't. And the people that kind of have maybe know his speed say it's not like ideal. I just think it's a really risky pick, and I just really like other cornerbacks in this class, especially over the potential spot you would have to take Will Johnson here. Like he could fall, but probably not much lower than like the early 20s or something. And I don't know if there's really like too many. I don't know. There's just too many question marks for me to take him there when I could take other guys later that I mentioned earlier. Like I don't know. I just don't kind of love that spot for Will Johnson in like the mid first round. That'll do it for this video. Thank you for watching. I'm going to have at least another, maybe 2, probably just 1, but we'll see more mock drafts out. Again, draft is literally right around the corner. I'll do one on Mathis's channel. If you don't know Mathis NFL, I'll probably do one over there. But I'll have a sleepers video coming out. I'll go ahead and do some work and kind of find some sleepers I really like, guys that are going a bit later in the draft, and go ahead and talk about them here. But I'll do that maybe within the next day or 2, so keep an eye out for that video. But thank you for watching. As always, stay smart, stay sharp, and I will see you guys later. Peace.